For close to 9 years now, Sicily Kariuki has been an influential figure within President Uhuru Kenyatta's administration. Starting off as a Principal Secretary for Agriculture at the onset of devolution, she was later, in a surprise move, elevated to the position of Cabinet Secretary, becoming the first PS to do so. She was brought in to resolve a graft-riddled National Youth Service. In an extensive interview in our first episode of Inside Uhuru's Cabinet, CS Kariuki spoke to Sam Gituku about her experiences, including her departure from the Health Ministry at a time the COVID-19 crisis was hitting the country.
Waziri, not many Kenyans have been lucky to serve in positions that you have as Principal Secretary and later as Cabinet Secretary. Maybe you can talk to us about that transition from T-Board of Kenya now serving as PS.
You know, interesting you ask, because the T-Board of Kenya is a parastatal under the Ministry of Agriculture. And therefore, when I rejoined government in the capacity of a CEO of T-Board of Kenya, I knew full well that I was coming in the into the public sector. And therefore, when President Uhuru Kenyatta took over in 2013, determined to professionalize the public sector. Anybody who viewed themselves as qualified to be a Principal Secretary was called to make an application to be considered as a Principal Secretary. And so for me, it seemed to have been a very natural progression. I put in my application. It was a long waiting period. I went through the interviews by PSC. I went through vetting by Parliament. In between was a nomination by President Uhuru Kenyatta. I must say, I mean, it came as a surprise because the long list was really very long. You're talking about 2,700 Kenyans. And, you know, for you then to be able to move to be to be one of the 26 who finally joined President Uhuru Kenyatta's administration was not one of those things you take for granted.
And here you are, you landed at the Ministry of Agriculture. This is a docket that in the few previous years, it had been riddled in a lot of graft allegations, whether it's the maize scandals or what may have been. And now you have to steer a ministry that is not just with that baggage, but also getting into the devolved system. What was it like for you?
Well, the devolution platform was quite interesting and exciting because there wasn't a template, you know, that had been figured out. You recall, we had only earned Katiba 2010, 3 years before then. And so we were learning and doing at the same time. The then transition authority became one of my best friends because we managed to strike a chord and reach an agreement of how to do the transitioning. And the governors became also my very good friends because we needed to agree, compare notes, consort, and move forward. And so I was at the forefront then, supported by my then minister, to be able to come up with what was documented as one of the best modalities of devolving sector from the center to the counties. And I must say, it gave me quite some adrenaline, you know, while doing it, because it's never been done before in the history of Kenya. And therefore, it came out a successful template.
Mm-hmm. At that time, you were working with CS Felix Koski?
CS Felix Koski was my minister then.
And barely 2 years later, then a scandal hit the Devolution Ministry, and we saw the resignation of the current governor of Kirinyaga, and it was you who was picked to go and head a ministry so wide and so much responsibility, again with so much baggage. Why you?
I really don't know why me, because it also came as a surprise, 26 of us, and I was privileged and again very honored to be promoted to cabinet. This is a space where you don't make an application. Now, the promotion to cabinet, which happened on 24th November of the year 2015, came to me as a surprise like it did to other Kenyans.
I'm just interested in that particular day, 24th. Where were you and who called you to deliver the news?
24th was a Thursday. I do recall that I then sat on the board of ICRAF, and I was up in Gigiri having a board meeting. And I received a call and I was told, you're needed out and don't go out of town. The boss may wish to have a discussion with you. And therefore, you quickly begin thinking, what has gone wrong? I mean, have you, done something that is not right, or, what is this? And the rest is history, because the rest of the afternoon I couldn't work. I mean, I was just anxious because what's happening here? And we didn't have the conversation as I had expected or as I had been prepared. And in the evening, then there was a news of the cabinet reshuffle. Like every other Kenyan, I was watching and listening and still dealing with my anxiety, not knowing who to share with. It is normally, of course, very confidential. You are not telling nobody that you've been told, stay around. And when the news came, and it just got me by surprise.
You learned on TV?
The verbal conversation was on TV as the boss was reading, his new cabinet. But the entire afternoon, I knew something was going to be happening. As to whether something was get off or get in or move forward, I didn't know.
Is that how the president works? He loves surprises?
I don't know. I mean, the president is as human as you and I are. And sometimes when you're in some of these political spaces, I think the template belongs to you.
Right.
Yes, the template
All right.
belongs to you.
Just to be clear, the Devolution Ministry, I think, was split at that time into public service, gender and youth affairs,
Yes.
and then another one was left as devolution, right?
Yes, indeed, that is what happened. And my colleague C.S. Kunjuri was handed over the devolution segment.
And I remember that time there had been the NYS 1, but still NYS 2 happened. What is it that you were not able to do to avoid repeat of such scandals, yet you had been recruited specifically to deal with what was going on in that sector?
Allow me to speak to you and Kenyans and say that whatever has been dubbed at NYS 2 remains an allegation, because nobody has actually been taken through a process of, being charged. Let me put it that way. Now, when I came in, and forever be grateful, I found a team at the top which required to be reorganized because of the alleged NYS 1. And I was given the liberty to identify the team that I would be working with, move others to spaces where if there had been any implication of the initial allegations, then you didn't feel very comfortable working with the same team. So I did quite some major reorganization around the top leadership team. We also did employ systems, including IT systems, to be able to monitor what would be happening. And as far as I'm concerned, we did a job that it required to be done with a lot of sweat, with a lot of pain, with a lot of commitment, with a new team, including the then PS who was assigned to work with me. And so, as far as I'm concerned, this still remains an allegation that is yet to be proved. Okay. And once it is proven, then somebody can trace back and say what really happened. Right. Yes.
And I think former peers, Lilian Omolo, should be in court, and some few former bosses within the National Youth Service are still in court. And then come 5th of January 2018, and the president in State House read a few names of who was going to be in his cabinet. I'm not sure I had your name.
No, my name actually wasn't there. You're very right. Again, it was a Friday. It happened at about 4 o'clock. I can remember. I was on leave. I was enjoying my first January 1 week, being home. And I hadn't traveled because that is just about the time everybody was anxiously waiting and looking to see, am I in, am I out? And therefore, we all listened.
What did you think?
To tell you the truth, it didn't bother me. For the simple reason, the formula went as follows. If I recall, there were about 5 or 6 of my male colleagues. It wasn't even a quarter of the cabinet. And therefore, a voice in me said, it will be all right. I felt the need to clarify, and I placed a call to the head of public, then Dr. Kinyua, and I said, my leave I'm due to resume office on Monday, as you will know. How do you advise I behave? He said, oh, you have your job. Go back to work. Back to work. And so with the head high, I went to work on Monday. I do recall, my technical teams looking at me and saying, what?
Are you supposed to be here?
What? And I quickly, convened the heads of a department meeting for opening the new year, for wishing each other well, but to also tell them, we have a job to do. And, we have a job to do. I am here. We carry on the programs where we stopped in December, bring them on, bring your home, your work plans, and all systems go. Right. And this continued for 3 weeks. And again, on 26th of January, again, another beautiful Friday like today, a colleague of mine called at about 4 o'clock. I was driving from office. And he said, "How are you, Dr. Harry?" And I laughed about it. I said, "It's wrong number. I can see you're my colleague. I don't understand." "Oh, Dr. Harry, you don't understand." I said, "I don't understand." "Oh, you're the new CS for health and, And I laughed, because I hadn't heard it. I said, "Go on to the news and just pick and congratulations." I said, "Okay, thank you." So again, a surprise like that. And because I was driving, then I got the driver to turn on the FM, and it was running over and over again. Well, that hit me. That hit me. Now, I wasn't very sure to be more excited than surprised, a little bit not sure. This is another space that I have never contemplated walking to. The rest is history.
And health docket has not been a smooth one, knowing even the challenges that have come of accusations of impropriety, whether it's the purchasing of the clinics, whether it's the controversies about the managed equipment service, or even the current one on KEMSA. Did you at any one time feel this weight of what people call cartels or the mafia house?
Yes, I did. Nobody should cheat you that when you move to these spaces, particularly when the spotlight has been on some of those spots, it's a very disturbing thing, because you're looking at yourself and saying, "I'm only me." You can only do so much. Given that even with the president, he's only able to move the top, the cabinet secretary, the principal secretary, maybe a few directors. The rest of the system remains intact. So again, you're walking into a space where they say, "Kuna wenyewe," And so appealing to them that things must be done differently requires some real serious consultation and a lot of courage, because you're going to walk on people. You're going to not be liked. And if you're going there to look for being liked, then you are going to the wrong place. But on the other hand, you're also walking onto a very risky space. When I moved into health, I do recall having a conversation with the then ambassador of the US, who paid a courtesy call and said, they had effectively stopped, some resources flowing into the ministry because of the allegations. Right. And he came to me and said, "Because it's you, we're going to look at the template again, and we trust you're going to, to clean the place, and we'll support you, notwithstanding." And that gives you a lot of energy. It means that there are people out there who can tell bad from not bad. And there are people out there who also believe changes can happen.
Yet people still feel that it's one of the ministries that there are people that are pretty connected to very powerful figures. How true is that, or how far-fetched is it?
I may not confirm this, but I'll tell you what happens. The minute you do not wear lenses of knowing where Sam came from and who he associates with, you are at liberty to do your thing. Your target is there, and you go for it. That is how I took it. And it really didn't matter. It didn't matter. I didn't have time to invest in finding out who is connected to who. And unfortunately, if I then walked over you, I can only apologize at this point in time. I did what I needed to do. The rule is as follows. I didn't create the law. It is telling us to behave in a certain way. Let's behave in a certain way. It didn't come out very easy, because by the time I left Afia House, I had acquired the name Thatcher, because that is how it should be. And I didn't mind either, so yeah.
Okay. Margaret Thatcher, you say, the Iron Lady of UK.
They said it.
Right. But KEMSA is still a thorn to date. There is a new board that is trying to fix KEMSA. Of course, there has been some injunctions, so delaying what they were doing. But what is so difficult with KEMSA from your understanding?
My understanding then was that a lot of capital in terms of stock was in the hands of KEMSA, and therefore it becomes a sport of interest, so to speak. And what I also recall is that a lot of reasonable investment had been made in making the vehicle more flexible, more efficient, more effective, more customer-centric. A lot of investment had been put. One hopes that even the efforts that are being made now are to bring that institution to that space. And it can happen, and I believe it will happen. I have seen my colleague with reasonable determination to move it to the next stage, and I think that is why you see a bit of this resistance.
Right.
Yeah.
Are there powerful hands within government or in the political class that have direct influence or weighty influence on KEMSA that you heard of or know of?
I wouldn't say that, I wouldn't say with any level of certainty, because unless somebody comes to you and introduces themselves and they say I'm XYZ and this and the other, then I can confirm. I didn't interact in that way at all. It is just the way you hear names being thrown all over the place. Names get thrown all over. Mine would get thrown when I become very tough. They even say, look now, she's part of it. Not a single interest had I, except reforming the place and making it function for UHC.
Okay. And then come early 2020 and coronavirus breaks out from China, spreads across the world, and Kenyans are worried, and we see a splash on one of the papers in the country, enemies of the people, faces of CSs, perception that Sicily Kariuki is not doing as much to protect the country. What was that crisis dealing with it as a health CS?
I think first and foremost, I think you, the media, created that crisis, I must say. There was a mechanism that had been set up immediately. Corona became a threat globally. It was set at cabinet level. Never mind, at that point, I was actually on my way towards the docket which I currently had. I still had the responsibility and duty to be able to coordinate with my colleagues to ask questions of understanding. The initial samples that were picked of persons that were traveling from China would then be sent to South Africa, and I was responsible for that. The initial surveillance team, I was responsible for putting it up. The issues of identifying the institutions that required to be supported by way of capacity, I was responsible for doing all that within the time that, I was effectively in two spaces at the same time. So as we were consulting and saying with my colleagues in transport, with my colleagues in foreign affairs, and the consultation was, are we now at a point of a lockdown? Do we shut all the international guests coming in, and what is the implication? And what protocols do we follow to communicate? You wake up one morning, we have that in that consultation today, you wake up the following morning and this is the headlines. I read a lot of malice. I read a lot of Kenyans being incited. I read a lot of misunderstanding. I read a lot of panic. I read perhaps a position not being communicated because there was no conclusive position of whether to shut at that point in time or to keep monitoring as we were consulting with WHO. So I read that, and my colleagues then, Foreign Affairs, Transport, we were all there. I can confirm to Kenyans today, there wasn't any lapse whatsoever. And if there had been any lapse or inaction on the part of government, perhaps then would have recorded cases almost immediately thereafter.
Was it, you know this, Kenyans didn't understand? That's what I'm asking. Do you think you had a challenge in communicating what you knew that the country didn't?
Perhaps, yeah. Perhaps to the ordinary person. Perhaps to the ordinary person. Perhaps what we may have taken long to plan, to plot, to understand, and to react. Yes, perhaps.
Then now you move away from health department. First of all, was it a relief, especially because of the crisis that time, moving to water ministry, water and irrigation?
No, it wasn't a relief in the sense that you may want, because again, you recall the deployment happened on 14th of January. At that point, there was no certainty of the magnitude of corona or COVID or what it meant, really. So for me, it was a movement like any other at that point in time. And obviously, moving from what was viewed to be one of the big four ticket items had different people interpreting it differently. For me, I have learned that change is the only permanent thing in life.
A ministry that heavy on promise, especially if you have to go back to 2013, of how many dams that were to be done, how many irrigation schemes that were to be done, and now just about 7 months to the general election. How do you rate that success?
Sam, you start by insinuating that the ministry is heavy on commitments and promises, but perhaps not on delivery.
I didn't say that.
I want to happily surprise you by inviting you to look at how we looked as a sector before 2013 and before Jubilee took over, and where we are at now, still with some 8 months to go. 8 months which are going to be quite phenomenal in terms of completing some of the ongoing works. When Jubilee government took over, we were at 52, round figure 52% water coverage. That means for every 10 Kenyans, 5 had access to clean potable water. That is what had been attained by the 3 administrations before. Now, look at this against a population that grew phenomenally in the last 20 years, and that we are able to say we were able to bring in another 20% in terms of water coverage. I'm talking about last financial year statistics. The remainder of the space we have as an administration will be able to do another 10% to bring the water coverage to 80% overally. And when I say overally, I'm looking at the national average. Look at irrigation. Irrigation, the targets, very ambitious targets that had been set were to open up 1.2 million acres by the time Jubilee comes to an end. We came in at a point of 300,000 acres roundabout. We are at above 600,000 acres opened up as I speak to you now. Again, it's doubled. If you look at it against target, then you see, yes, there is a gap that needs to be closed. But you look at it against cumulative achievement from when we came in, I think that I want to commend the teams that have been at it. Given what we've suffered, we've seen consistent drought situations being experienced. We've seen consistent needs, therefore, to redirect resources towards the drought responses, for example, that then negate whatever else that may have been, planned.
And now that you mentioned that, what do you think would be the sustainable solution to providing water to arid and semi-arid areas where you see people suffering, livestock suffering because they cannot access that essential commodity?
We have just developed a sessional paper on water policy management that is addressing the long-term water requirements for the country. And in it, one of the most critical intervention that we must invest in is water harvesting. There's a lot of water that goes to waste whenever it is raining, and it's because of the architecture around water harvesting. And therefore, part of what is articulated in this policy and has been expressed by way of regulations that are implementable is a national water harvesting interventions as mandatory in institutions of a certain size. So that if you see where we are at today, no reason that we should not be harvesting water and directing it. That's one intervention. And we've got to be deliberate. That is at the domestic level, that is at the institutional level, that is at national level. The runoff, when we design our roads, for example, the runoff ought to be redirected for what we call water recharge. And therefore, there is again a conversation between the 2 ministries or the ministries involved in terms of planning. So anytime we do any major infrastructural investment, runoff water must be tapped and it must be redirected to the ground for recharge so that the water aquifers do not run dry. And that's the second intervention. And it's a must. The third intervention is what I keep referring to as citizen responsibility to any public good space. What do I mean? Today, if you go around the informal settlements from where we are today, you'll be able to find car wash set up by either young people in the informal settlement, and they are tapping clean water from the tap to clean vehicles. Not acceptable. Not acceptable. So the citizens themselves must come to realize that water as a resource is not infinite. And therefore they must take care of it, even as we do the other interventions from a government point. And so these are some of the quick thoughts and
What is the alternative for car wash business?
The car wash business?
Yes, so that they don't use fresh water from the taps.
It is the water either that has been trapped through harvesting, or it is water that has been recycled. Reuse. Because, I mean, you want to drive with a clean car, right? But when you divert water which is meant for domestic use to clean a car, it is obscene. I mean, it is too expensive. All of us, including the Deputy President, report to one boss. The boss is the President.
How often do you consult with the Deputy President?
As and when the President thinks I need to consult.
When is the last time you did? It's been a term that has been quite hot if you talk about the politics and the disagreements between the president and the deputy, who are your bosses. How has that affected your work?
I won't really say it has affected my work. It really has not affected my work whatsoever. And the reason it has not affected my work is that all of us, including the Deputy President, report to one boss. The boss is the President. And therefore, in the event that I need direction or redirection, the person previously, and even now that I defer my issues to, we really will be the President. And so it really has not affected my work, as it were.
That's interesting, because in the first term, even when you were picked to be a CS for Public Service and Gender, I would imagine it was a product of consultation between the deputy and between the president and the deputy. How much of reference do you have to make to the deputy president in decision making, whether it's in the first term or second term?
You know, I really don't think, or first, I don't know how the president reaches a decision to appoint a cabinet. So I would be unfair if I think it was a product of consulting or not consulting. All I know is that there's one boss at a time. And even in the cases that I would be required to have a discussion on a matter with the deputy president, it will be on the instructions of the very boss. Okay?
How often do you consult with the deputy president?
As and when the president thinks I need to consult.
When is the last time you did?
Oh, a while back. A while back, really.
2021, 2020, 19?
A while back. A while back. A while back.
2021?
A while back. A while back.
I don't know what a while back means. But all the same, do you watch news?
I do, yeah, I do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so when you watch news and see very open disagreement, conflict between your two bosses, what do you think?
What is it? The disagreement is as reported by the media.
Sometimes you'll even see the clips of the two leaders.
Yeah, as reported by the media.
There's a reason why you watch news anyway.
I watch news, yeah. Once in a while I do, not all the time, but I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
when you see those disagreements, what do you think?
Well, it reminds me of enemies of the people. You know, a completely exaggerated position. It reminds me, Sam, when I wake up in the morning, my nephew calls me and says, "Auntie, you are very famous," on a Sunday morning. And I say, "What happened?" I said, you're in the papers, headlines. Now, little dude doesn't know, below there, thief. I'm famous. So I respect media because you have a role, but I don't take everything that is said to me through the media for the gospel truth. I would rather consult the Bible.
Running government and politics is not about gospel, but really, are you saying there's no problem between the president and the deputy?
No. I'm not saying that there's no problem, but I'm also not going to allow myself to get into that conversation between my boss especially. No, I don't want to get to that position.
And allow me to ask this question. How is it working with the president? What kind of a boss is he?
He's a very good boss. He's a very good boss to the extent that he will give you clearly his expectations. He will give you clearly his disappointments when you disappoint, but he will give you the support and the confidence and the trust that you earn and that you deserve. So he's a very good person to work with. He's a good boss to work with. He will allow you to share ideas if you have any good ideas. He will listen. If he thinks that's not his pace, he will tell you. And as it is. He's also, as human as we are, very, very understanding. And this came through to me, when I had a family problem and I had to be out of office for almost 3 months. And I felt the warmth of somebody who is not just a slave driver that you need to perform and you need to support me to deliver. That here you also have your personal space and take time and, heal. Yeah.
How about the deputy president as a boss?
He's equally a good person. Both of them very, very sharp. Very, very blessed with the brain power, both of them.
I take note that your answer is very short, but that's your answer.
Yes.
So, come June 2019, and we see a couple of cabinet secretaries walking to the DCI on allegations that there's a threat to the deputy president. Was your name among those?
Yes, actually, I was one of them.
What was happening?
It's interesting you ask. I've never sat to actually reflect what happened about this, but you wake up one morning and you get a call and you're required to go and, record a statement. And I say, what about? What about? Well, I'm a Kenyan, like all the other Kenyans, so I converge with my colleagues and we say, who is complaining? What's happening? Finally, there was no statement recorded because there was nothing to record. Because unless Sam or Kariuki is complaining, Onderi is complaining, can I then, give a counter position of what I know? I knew nothing about it. Nothing. Fabrication again of somebody sitting somewhere. Yeah, so I get out of it, and obviously it causes you to ask a lot of questions. But importantly, because you know yourself, I know myself so very well, so that if you went shouting about thief and this and the other, I know myself. So if you go saying you could sit to even plot what, let alone plot, even imagining you can plot, hurts me. But it really bothers my family. Because you see, they don't know. They are not inside of me. To know. It bothers. I'm sure it will bother somebody like His Excellency the President. Because what is this about? Yeah? What is this about? It bothers everybody also. So it's one of those bad dreams, bad imaginations, miscalculated. I don't know what end it was meant to yield. It yielded nothing. It will yield nothing. And we moved on. But when I go to the office immediately, I'm coming from DCI, and I go to the office, then I'm in health. My team is looking at me like, is this the same person? So it has a baggage which is unnecessary. And if that's how to play politics, then I think it's a dirty space. If that's how to do it.
And do you ever speak to the deputy president about this?
About it?
Yeah.
About this particular case?
Yes, the particular matter about allegations and plotting to kill him.
No, and I had no reason to. Remember, he's not From what, there was no record that he had complained. You recall that? There was no record that he complained. Neither did he ask. So there was really no basis. It's like me walking there and, starting to pick a conversation about water with somebody who is gardening there. It doesn't work.
And I saw you in Nyandarua engaging the masses. Of course, you were delivering on water projects. And I felt I have not seen this Sicily, or this side of Sicily, sounding quite political, quite engaging. What's the plan?
Well, you haven't been out to the field with me all this time. I started, the minute I moved to cabinet, reporting to a politician, an appointee of a politician at that level, it dawned on me my responsibility, which include advising the president, require for me to be with the people for whom he is serving and therefore has appointed me. And so from 2016, 15, 16, 17, I've been quite at that level working with these people, because this is where, this is how I'm able to communicate, one, what the president has done and what the president is doing.
President Uhuru Kenyatta jage kugate maendeleo maria besa cia President Uhuru mekete.
I don't just do it in Nyandarua, and I think it's important. If coming week, time allows you, or in January when you come back after Christmas, join me as I go to Kilgoris, for example. Same template. Water project there. I go to Narok, same there. And why? Because I also believe in a leadership which is hands-on, right? And because of the space and the space of the citizens and governments, I have found it the most effective way for me to be able to deliver, both for myself, my ministry, for the government, but also importantly for the president.
Nyandarua County is your home.
Yes.
It's almost 9 years since devolution started. When you look at it, what do you think has been, or do you think devolution has really worked for Nyandarua County?
The template is very good. Has it worked? Yes and no. To a larger extent, it has worked, because today if you go to Siaya, you will find yourself in a state-of-the-art hotel. I mean, you get there, you think you're in LA. Happened because of devolution and because people have resources to spend there, and because there are interventions happening there, people don't need to go even to Kisumu. You look at Makueni, for example, and you look at it from a healthcare delivery, and you're proud, because the basic infrastructure for basic healthcare delivery is in place and systems have been put and people are responding. You speak with them. You go to a place like Meru, for example, and you're happy to see 100 boreholes sunk within the first 1 year of CS Munya taking over. That's many. So it's working.
I asked about Nyandarua. You're not telling me about Nyandarua.
Well, I did indicate I wanted to be as broad as that, so that
yes,
I am not discussing Nyandarua.
You have sampled Siaya, you have sampled Makueni, you've sampled Meru.
I've sampled what is positive.
Tell me about Nyandarua. What's your assessment?
I'm not very sure that I will say, I'm not sure I'll say what is positive. Okay, I will say that equipment for grading roads have been bought. Okay? I will also say I have seen pavements within the little capital center called Okalau. I will say that has happened. But a lot will require to be done. As I speak to the people there, and even as I speak to matters water in Nyandarua, I'm speaking to matters water very directly to Nyandarua, because there's a gap. Water is a concurrent function. So that even as national government supports Nyandarua with the water projects, my expectation is that the county government ought to also be investing and stretching a little bit.
Why are they not?
I don't know really, Sam. I don't know, Sam. Maybe that's not their priority.
So what's the solution?
What is the solution? The leadership must decide whether they are going to respond to what the people require or not respond. I am responding from where I am, the best way I know how. And I'm not a minister for Nyandarua. I'm a minister for national government. Therefore, my response is in 47 counties. Sam, why are you taking me? Are you taking me this question?
Look, your term comes to an end in August 2022, or at least new CSs are appointed, then they'll take over. Where do you see yourself in that transition?
There are three plausible positions that I see of myself. Recall, never mind, I've spent a lot of time in the public sector. I have also spent a good amount of time in the private sector. It's possible I could head back to the private sector in whichever capacity. The other route I could choose, depending on the outcome of August, to play some role within the national government. The third position, it is possible I could play some role in the devolved structure.
Private sector, perhaps within your control. National government depends on the appointing authority. Role in devolved structure. I'm not sure you want to be a CEC.
Why not?
Or a speaker of an assembly.
Why not?
From a CS. Does that include running for governorship?
I see where you're taking me. It could be any. It could take any form. It could take any form, up to and including consulting. You know, that private sector space. I've consulted before. And I don't know why you think I can't be a CC. Why not?
Would you? Under who? Which governor?
if that is what people think I can.
No, it's your decision anyway. Look,
no, it cannot be a unilateral decision, Sam. Or even making an application to become a PS cannot be a unilateral decision. You got to consult.
One of the water projects you launched in Nyandarua begins 9th of December, concludes on 9th of February. Is it just a coincidence? Because 9th of February is a very important date, because CSs and state officers, public officers that want to go into politics must resign by that date. Is it a coincidence?
No, you're very keen on small details. You're absolutely very keen on small details. I didn't even read that to have any meaning beyond the date that a project must be delivered. And it happened for any other project. Now, this project that you visited with me has that for an end date. It didn't even occur to me, because I like putting myself not on the date of 10th, 9th or 8th. I like to frame it in terms of the month and the likely space of the month. This is the first half, this is the second half.
Shall we be surprised to hear that on 9th of February 2022, Sicily Kariuki is no longer CS?
I don't think anything should surprise you. Really, nothing should surprise you, because I'll tell you the following. My colleagues and I are sitting here. The president is sitting here, fully aware that August, there will be a change. So I think that it wouldn't be fair for me, my family, or the people who trust me, to sit and pretend that I'll sit until it is August and then I'm, coming home and saying thank you. I mean, it's coming. Tomorrow is coming. I mean, it is that certain. August is coming.
CS, what is that you're not telling me?
I don't know what is it that you want me to tell you that I haven't told you.
Okay, let's talk about what we can verify. I've seen you in several events, yes, including the Mount Kenya Foundation luncheon that endorsed Raila Odinga for presidency. I also saw you at a Azimio la Umoja event in Kasarani, of course, supporting the bid of Raila Odinga. Does this say you've now decided and that's your preferred next president?
If I go to my village today, my neighbors, my church elder, my pastor, most likely we have a cup of tea with me tomorrow, Sunday. Sunday, I'm likely to go to a church or two in the neighborhood. They're looking upon me, and the question is, what next? They say leadership is a lot of risk, but also a lot of boldness. Because then if I cannot offer any semblance of a suggestion, they don't need me. They don't need me. Today, this afternoon when I go to the office and I'm meeting my secretaries, if I am blank, they don't need me. If I don't challenge them for moving from point A to C to Q, they don't need me. Now, the Mount Kenya Foundation luncheon you speak about, there was more than Sicily. I only happened to be sitting with some here. I was with several of my colleagues. Why? Our voice will have to count for where the country goes in 2022. I want a peaceful transition. I want a leader who, like we keep saying, will be able to manage the legacy issues that are important for the country and for the region. So this is just what I'm trying to do. I'm just trying to be a good citizen who has happened to have an opportunity to be a leader.
That's a very interesting answer. Why isn't that person then a person you've served with in cabinet, Deputy President William Ruto?
Because he hasn't asked me to be of any use.
Has Raila asked you?
Around, yes. Not Raila as a person. Not Raila as a person. But Raila, the former Prime Minister, through community leadership. Remember, there are hierarchies in terms of leaderships here. Because you start by analyzing yourself, that you saw me with the Mount Kenya Foundation in their luncheon. Not so. Read Mount Kenya Foundation. All right? I'm one of the leaders within that region. So if they want to be able to understand, and like they said previously, just that perhaps you missed this, previously, they said everybody should be given an equal opportunity to have a conversation with everybody else. All right? And that is why there were a series of luncheons happening before.
Was it? I didn't miss it.
Or you deliberately don't want me to speak.
The decision is significant. The decision is significant.
So tell me what you want me to say. It looks like you have an answer for me.
No, it's okay. It's your answer, which is fine. I accept it. But so if the Deputy President were to ask you to support his presidential bid, would you?
I'll deal with it when it comes, and I'll not do it as Sicily. I want you to be very clear on that. None of these conversations can I have as an individual.
What do you think about the bottom-up economic model?
From the political contextualization or from the reality?
From what it has been presented to Kenyans.
I must say I have not interrogated it very deeply, but I must say the following. When I look at a small irrigation project in Turkana or West Pokot or Machakos, places where I practically have been to, and I see a water pan, either a community serving 5 homesteads or serving 1 acre farm, owned by some in Machakos, a place where there hasn't been access to water. And a water pan that we have invested 200,000 shillings as government. And it rains and there is water. And you're able to do your bullet chilies. And you're able to, through again government, to be brought together for aggregation purposes, and your bullet chilies and those of the other person and the other person are able to make 100 kilograms. And we're able to get an exporter, KHE, to come and collect and take them to the UK. If that is not bottom up, then I don't know what we are speaking. That, for me, is in the simplest form what the economy has been and what the Jubilee administration has been about. It's pure.
And I've seen you in campaigns or political gatherings alongside Raila Odinga, alongside Governor Francis Kimemia, who apparently appear to be on the same side of politics. Does that have any effect on your vision or aspirations, if at all you want to run for leadership in Nyandarua County?
Sam, I think I want you to become now a political reporter. Ajana na hii mambo ingine.
Just answer my question.
Move to that space because I think you really want to, you really enjoy being in that space. The question is that what it means.
Yes, because you're on the same side and you're saying you'd want to serve at the devolved structure. And I believe Governor Kimeme would want a second term. How then will that work if you get to that space?
I said that is one of the three possibilities. I haven't arrived. I haven't reached there.
Okay.
When I arrive there, you will know. When I arrive there, if I arrive there, okay. When I arrive, you will know.
But should Governor Kimeme get a second term?
Should he?
Do you think?
You ask me? I will not be the right person to say yes or no. Why? I will not be the right person. I won't be the right person.
So you pass on that?
Yeah.
That's fine. Waziri, 2021 has also been a tough year for you as a person.
Yes.
Tell me about it.
You're looking at this year, 2021. 2020 was tougher for me from a personal point. Yeah, was tougher for me because I suffered the biggest loss I've ever suffered personally, ever since I knew myself. Losing my last born child still looks like it happened yesterday. So, scars still very fresh. Sometimes they say when life gives you lemons, you make a lemonade out of it. I will obviously never overcome that situation. I heal through speaking about it. I heal through living with my girl like she's still there. I heal by appreciating my family because they have agreed for us to put up a foundation, Sicily Kariuki Foundation, to be able to carry on the legacy of this wonderful 21-year-old girl. We have children in school, courtesy of the foundation, from very, very poor, needy backgrounds. I live through remembering the girl by adopting orphans. We have adopted an orphanage in Nyandarua with many children. And we carry on. We allow ourselves to speak about it freely because you don't get out of it. We speak about it freely.
And condolences for that. What was she like?
Thank you. I don't know. I mean, was she for everything that a mother and a friend would want to have. Vibrant. If anybody knew how to be happy, it was Noni. If anybody knew how to be present, it was her. If anybody knew how to impact at her level, it really was her. When I was going around speaking on President Uhuru Kenyatta's second term and why he should be given a second chance, it is she who would get into the youth spaces ahead of me. So that kind of energy, that kind of a person. She interned with the UNFPA, in between university, and they're just full of what she was able to do. She was in Kibra with the girls disadvantaged. She's showing them how to move, and real impact within a very, very short time. And that is why the foundation in her honor then helps me to relive that which I missed. She always loved to work in the girl space, having to do stuff around that foundation for it to have meaning, because it does give me a lot of meaning when I do that.
Mm-hmm. That's a beautiful thing. And well done, and sorry for the loss, and may she continue to rest in peace. Asante sana Waziri. It's been a pleasure speaking to you and walking through this journey. Thank you for speaking to us.
Thank you very much, Sam. Thank you for having me today.
Great. Sicily Kariuki, Cabinet Secretary for Water and Irrigation, speaking to us about her reflections in cabinet, personal and political life of what she's thinking about. Back to you in studio.